It has been announced in, so it's very, very recent announcement from Canonical. It has been announced in Hong Kong by our founder, and is starting to be put in place, and a partnership and more partner coming to it, etc. So it's a very new thing. So where do we come from? Ubuntu. So I assume everyone heard or know a bit about Ubuntu, and Canonical is the company behind Ubuntu, provides support, consulting around Ubuntu and OpenStack. Ubuntu is the first guest Linux OS on Amazon, Azure, HP Cloud, but HP Cloud is an OpenStack, you probably know, and run on Ubuntu itself. So we're coming from that new world of software as a service, infrastructure as a service. All those new guys, all those new way of delivering IT services majority of it runs on Ubuntu. Vast majority of it runs on Ubuntu. And the involvement with OpenStack, OpenStack is inside Ubuntu. It's a package inside main Ubuntu. It's not something on the side that we plug in. It's totally supported as the rest of the Ubuntu packages. OpenStack itself uses a lot of the Ubuntu tools, way of developing things, Cadence, Launchpad, blueprints. We have the same type of, so basically OpenStack copy and adapt to their, some of the stuff they fully copy, some not, and reuse our tools to develop OpenStack. We have the Cloud Archive. So what the Cloud Archive is, we'll see also with the roadmap. OpenStack do a release every 6 months, but people in production who have SLAs with the customers, they want a stable platform. So you have a mix of running with the last development version of running with a very old something. So what people really want, something in between. And that something is in between is what we've done with the Cloud Archive. It is you run Ubuntu long-term support on your host, so you get all the benefits of 5-year support, certification from the vendors. You're all covered, but 1204 long-term support come with SX, and you don't want that anymore. So you add the Cloud Archive, and you can get Havana on top of the long-term support one, and that's what we support in production today. Early on, we started continuous integration inside Canonical for supporting our customers, especially on OpenStack. It's even more important than on anything else. And it leads to create the OpenStack Interoperability Lab, the OIL. Ubuntu is the development and reference platform for OpenStack. DevOps, clear choice. They all love us and do a lot of things with it. We're certified on a tier 1 hardware, and 80% of the OpenStack clouds in production, the public ones and large private ones, runs on Ubuntu. What we see the game changing, so that is coming in the industry, in the IT industry, is first IaaS, thanks to Amazon. Just be clear about this. But now we want it to be more open. People want to be able to have their own infrastructure as a service and have more choices. And this is where we bet on OpenStack. On the storage part, we are very, very close to Ceph, of course Swift, because it's inside OpenStack. And we see coming more and more things on SDN, and have a good partnership with those guys on the platform as a service. And what's amazing in there is they all run on Ubuntu as a default platform, all of them. So we create the lab as a way to help the ecosystem. This morning and In general, you heard that OpenStack is an ecosystem. It is. You have a lot of choices, a lot. And you choose one, then the other, then the other. Let's do it. Let's choose. Basically, you want this. When you start to think about OpenStack, you think this is OpenStack and this is a product. Yes, it is, at the API level. At the API level, you can have the compute, the networking, and the storage. And the same one, whatever you put underneath. But you can choose what you put underneath, which is the beauty of it, because it brings competition underneath that helps customers to get the best of both worlds, stability and innovation, at a very, very good price. But it comes at a cost, and the cost is complexity. Complexity and a number of flavors. Which flavor of this do you want? First, which one of those? All supported on OpenStack with Ubuntu. On KVM, ESX, containers, more coming. First choices. Then you probably need some storage. You can go with the default Swift, you can go with Ceph, with iSCSI, other choices, and FS for some of the servers of the service. The network can be flat, boring, very SX. Can be SDN. Open vSwitch, we support directly. We have a partnership with VMware for NSX and NVP. So we create oil. What you can see in regular world where interoperability is necessary, think of Ethernet. You have a standard, bunch of guys deciding on a spec, everyone trying to adhere to a spec, then they do a plug fest, they realize nothing works, they go back to rearrange the specs and rearrange the implementation. It takes years and years and years and years. IPv6. I have gray hair. I was learning IPv6 at school. It's not there yet. Just started. This is way too long. So in that world, that give a release so fast. OpenStack is probably the fastest development project that go in production that I ever see. Is early on that you need to do that plug fest and check all those choices you've seen. And we have already in the lab all those partners. So the lab is a real thing. It's a real data center we own. Our partner, listed here, are there to the partner program. Some of them, like HP, IBM, I've seen some IBM guys, put their hardware offer that goes with OpenStack in the lab, and then we can pick and choose and test all the combinations. So that's for what you're going to put underneath, the Legos. But things change over time. You have a release, so the little bubbles is a release of OpenStack every 6 months. So you can have the release of OpenStack on the long-term support. And people doing production love this. Is in advance, you know where the next major release is coming. You know how much time is going to be supported. So people writing software on top loves us for this, because we tell in advance. And for those who don't know, the release name of Ubuntu is year and month. So very easy to remember. You don't have to remember the fancy animals. That's cool if you want it, but it's much easier for people to remember this because it's self-explanatory. Next release, next year, April. The only variation is beginning or end of the month. Which means we need to test this, and this. even if I choose the same, even if I just choose KVM, OVS, and stuff, I need to test several combinations because of time. Because some people stay on that one, some people are running on the development one, etc. So a lot of combination possible. Yes?
The white circles are OpenStack related?
Yes, yes. So which means after a while we go in maintenance here, and you have to move to the new ones for getting the new version. We're still in the discussion to how many of those we will overlap. At least one, maybe two. We don't know yet. And to be able to support this, even without the lab open to the public, we put in place this, the continuous integration test infrastructure inside Canonical, where every time people like Monty put code on a trunk, automatically we start building, deploying, testing OpenStack itself on Ubuntu on the different releases with our tools, because we use Juju, Landscape, and with our partners. Nicira, Ceph, VMware, Hyper-V is even listed here. What we do is we do a real build deployment of OpenStack on real hardware and run some tests on top, just to be sure everything will run smooth for customer in productions. How do we do that? We use our tool, our own tool, called Juju. Juju is not in, you had the debate this morning with things going in OpenStack, not in OpenStack. That's an OpenStack foundation view. Juju has been built to run on multiple clouds. We believe that customers should have choices. If you remember the first slides, Ubuntu is supported on all the public clouds available on the planet, basically. I forget Giant. We support that too. So we create Juju is a level above. I can do a full afternoon on Juju if you want, but it's really focusing on managing services. So you can have a look at our website, juju.ubuntu.com. It's full open source, open for people doing the charms. They can keep for themselves, so they can push to the charm store. For example, when you want to deploy an OpenStack, you need MySQL and RabbitMQ. It's nothing new with those guys. They've been around for a while. We just reuse the MySQL charm that everyone participate to make it better to deploy on OpenStack. But you can reuse it on your own cloud to deploy something else, which means we can deploy on bare metal, of course. And the same when you want to deploy Ceph and connect Ceph to the Cinder and stuff. So deploying Ceph and connecting it to Cinder with Juju, you can do all that with the GUI. You grab Ceph, you grab Cinder, you draw the line here. It's called a relation. If you want to understand why Juju is so unique, you have to just focus on the relation first. Otherwise, you will try to match that with Chef Puppet stuff that goes for one VMs, one server at a time, whereas Juju works on services. In those every little boxes here, you can have thousands of VMs created at the back, and Juju will take care of keeping the relation between those services, interdependent services between them. And that's the beauty of it. Because once you have that, you can scale easily. Scaling with Juju is just doing add unit. And as soon as you have metering, so with Havana, we're going to have in Juju auto-scaling, full auto-scaling for all the clouds. Remember, Juju has been designed to work on many clouds. It's available on Windows, macOS, and Ubuntu. So it's not only a Ubuntu thing. So that's some of the tools we use to be able to do that continuous integration, and that's the way we deploy and upgrade and manage the clouds for our customers. So let's have a look again of how many choices you can have. Imagine you can choose one. This is one column. You can choose some hardware for the servers. You can even mix for the network and all the SDN plugins. That will be a lot of different combination and very complex piece of software. A lot of choices from the different storage providers and the hypervisor. So what we've decided to do, because we've seen many customers trying to test every single combination take month and month and month and month. You usually don't have the budget to have a large enough deployment. So you're going to have a view of what feature-wise works from 6 months ago, from the last release. The release will change. So maybe the combination you've chosen 6 months ago doesn't work anymore because nobody tested it. So that's why we create the lab, allowing the vendors, those guys, to put their hardware with us in our lab, work with our partners like Ceph, with think tank, in our lab too, so they can play with all those gears and check early on before releases that's going to work or not. And even more importantly, with all these networking capabilities coming. So that's vendors that are not listed, or if you are part of a team in a vendor that is listed, that you're not aware of this lab, you should talk to us. A lot of the details inside it are still under NDA, so we can do that, but we need to sign. They will be public in the next month, so that's nothing very, just being very clear on the messaging. And of course, once you deploy, this is just deploying OpenStack if you just look at it this way. But once you deploy OpenStack, you want to be able to run things on, to test, to know if OpenStack works is for the users. So you need a workload that you can push on easily, rapidly push on your newly installed OpenStack or upgraded OpenStack and check that it doesn't break because you've made change below. And that's why also Juju is so important to us, because we have a lot of charms. And with the charms, we can easily do permutation and combination and very rapidly and easily deploy many different workloads there. So, yes?
Can you give some example to show what was the change in Ubuntu, maybe some feature contribution to OpenStack to make things work? You said about supporting many.
Celometer has been incubated in Canonical, and the major contributor went to create Innovance. But the project started inside Canonical, for example. We focus today on running on production with our we have partner, etc. And you're probably referring to the number of commits. You know how many commits we've done to adapt to Ubuntu? It was on Ubuntu from the day one. So we don't have such a metric to show you because we don't have to adapt to our stuff. It was already there. Another thing is we really focus on people doing scale out and new innovative software as a service, software, etc. And a lot of those software are pretty happy with what Folsom was giving them. No need to complexify, bloat OpenStack to cope with legacy stuff. That's why you don't see so many commits from us in Havana and stuff like this. But we've been providing a reference architecture for high availability, and we work on our tools to fully support deployment, upgrade, live upgrades of a running OpenStack that has been demonstrated in Portland. Installing is not an issue since Diablo or something like that. So it's really where we put our efforts, and where we think people are waiting us as an editor and support consulting organization is to put that thing that we know for the last 2-3 years to be fully running, upgradable, manageable, that you can have resource management. There is a lot of things to do once you have a YAS. OpenStack will just bring you up to infrastructure as a service. Then if you want to provide a full service at the end, there is much more things to do around. That's why we partner with integrators, and there is more integrators coming. One example, you want to compete with HP Cloud. OpenStack will give you Keystone and YAS. Good. You don't have a way to, where do I put my, create an account and pay? Don't have that. You have to integrate with your own system. And we will probably never see that, because it's where some of the people compete. So we focus on that part, like we do for the operating system. We do for OpenStack. It's pretty, it's kind of a Red Hat catchphrase. But as you saw previously, all the combinations can very easily become a nightmare, because so many people contribute things and plugins. And this is where you see a lot of commits, suddenly a lot of commits. Someone decided to bring his solution inside OpenStack and need to do some change and plugins, so boom. But that benefits only from them. It's not a benefit from the full community. Like the Linux kernel. The Linux kernel is 70% drivers. So it benefits from the vendor of those hardware, not the full community of it. But globally, it benefits the community in the sense that you have more choices and you can run on more hardware and more different things, but it's not piling up to the core. So the goal of the lab is to help all the partners and people around OpenStack to work on this. So I'm not going to read this. It's probably pretty obvious if you work with integrating things that it's very important. So now let's say we choose those flavor and deploy. We just announced a turnkey solution with Cloud Foundry and Pivotal and more. So for us, the PaaS market is pretty new. More stuff needs to be put in, etc. So we don't want to lock people inside one PaaS story and work with the different vendors. And as is the same in development, in business, etc. When there is a new thing coming, you have a lot of different actors trying to make their place and eat their part of the cake, and slowly they merge or they go with one or two. So we want to be there with all those guys that have a solution to propose and see who's going to win. It has been charmed. So a charm is what you use to deploy the services. So it can run on any OpenStack, but it can run on Amazon or Azure. Next we do bundles with Juju. So here is an example. We've done Charm Championship. So we offer a price. It was 10,000 euros for the best bundles and the best Charm solution. And the winner of this year, one of the winners, we have several categories, create a very, so you can have a look at this on the web, a very clever way to collect and analyze and search logs. Looks pretty boring. You think everyone has done this before? No, there is still innovation possible. And being able to easily combine all those complex pieces of services and just focus on the one that are very important to you allows people to innovate more, to do more things. And innovation in a startup company is key, is everything. So you can focus on, I want really to work on those log indexers, search, etc., get real good solutions, and don't spend time learning RabbitMQ, Ibana, SenseU, whatever framework or things I should just use. I'm done.
We have time for one question. There isn't.
So there is a website that has been announced, and you can have a look at it and see how to join. So there will be 3 different levels. One level of partnership with for people like IBM, HP, hardware vendors, network vendors, to have their gears inside the lab. People doing things inside OpenStack can also partner, and with the partnership we can decide how much you do and how much we do for you. And everyone who do some charms, we can easily test on top of the lab. Usually get a sponsorship from one of the other partners, the paying ones, to have your charms tested on all those combinations. Once in a while can be a very, very important thing for you.
Thank you, Nicolas.
Thank you.